Hi, folks. Steve Urban here, founder and CEO at Riderflex. We hope you enjoy today's podcast. And as a reminder, please subscribe to the Riderflex show for updates on new episodes. And by the way, if you haven't already, check out the book we recently launched, The Riderflex Guide, Inspiring and Hiring, available for purchase on Amazon. And now, a quick word from our sponsor.
Try the #1 marketing platform for small business. Everything you need from design to marketing to CRM. Learn more at marketing360.com. Marketing 360. Fuel your brand.
Nanea Reeves on the Riderflex podcast. How you doing, Nanea?
I am doing great. Thanks for having me here, Steve.
You bet. Are you in LA today?
I am. I love Los Angeles. We have almost as good of weather here as in my hometown of Honolulu, Hawaii.
That's where you're from.
Yeah,
okay, great.
That's where I'm from originally, but I love living in LA. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful city, and it's a great group of different. It's a great collection of different types of people as well. We still have a thriving artist community here. You've also got other industries besides tech present with Hollywood and
yes.
as a big, it's a company town that way. So, and we have a really great music scene here too. So it's a great place to live.
Tell us a little bit about, your childhood, your siblings, your sisters and your mom a little bit and growing up, if you don't mind.
Sure. Well, I would definitely connect with the story the situation that you shared with me about your son and his mother. My mother was a heroin addict for most of my childhood, and I believe now, I have an understanding she was probably self-medicating a mental illness that was undiagnosed, and she in later life was treated for bipolar and manic episodes as well, that resulted from her condition. And just even having that information made it so much easier to kind of reframe the way I grew up, having a mother like that. But it's as a child, I took on a tremendous amount of responsibility, in the household. And I can look at that now as being a foundation for a lot of strength. I definitely have moved out of seeing myself as a victim of childhood trauma and drama. These experiences don't have to define who I am as a person. They're just part of my journey. And I'm not alone in this journey, as you identified. And I know many people listening are holding some of these concerns in their own lives. And I am an example that you can learn how to reframe the things that have happened to us as children and find strength and courage and even power in that experience. And so what happened to me was, taking on a lot of responsibility, now I can see as a huge superpower of mine, right? And I don't know that I would have that attribute if I didn't have a mother like I had. In fact, when my mother passed away, during the last couple of months of her life, I showed up as a good daughter, irrespective of whether she had shown up in my life as a good mother or not. I knew that for my own growth, I needed to show up in a way that I would be proud of, but that I could also live with on the other side of her passing. And we got to have some amazing conversations, and I was able to tell her. She apologized to me.
She did.
Okay. She did. She apologized for not being a good mother. And I think it's, she was able to do that because I wasn't showing up with a lot of punishing sort of behavior at the end of her life. And it made her feel safe enough to do that. But also, I was able to say, look, I wouldn't be Nanea Reeves, who I am today, without having been your daughter.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. So many things that happen to us when we're young,
Yeah.
growing up, and the way our parents are, the way our siblings are, or anything that happened to you early in life, so much of that shapes who we are and shapes who we become.
Yep. And so the shift though, I had to really look at why did I turn out the way that I am. And, I'm a work in progress. It's not,
We all are.
it's not like there are lots of growth areas still to be explored. But when you look at how my life could have turned out, the fact that I'm standing here talking to you, that you're able to even pull up talks of mine on YouTube, it's a miracle, right? I wasn't supposed to have this journey. And I look at my sister, who was 2 years younger than me, and she passed away from a drug overdose in the most tragic situation. And, and had lived a terrible life leading up to that moment of abuse and addiction and victimization at the hands of just other predators because they saw someone vulnerable. And this happened to her in a way that, if I had not received the mental health support that I received at age 15 as the result of just having a full-blown meltdown that ended me up in the hospital. And I had the amazing experience of being supported by a therapist who taught me how to meditate. And that was like the first tool in my toolkit that just allowed me to start to make small decisions that were more life affirming in my life in the moment.
Were you already headed down the wrong path when that?
Totally. My sister and I were two peas in a pod, and we were unsupervised children, during a time where, we were beyond latchkey kids, right? Like,
we were. Me too.
For a long time, and no one would even notice or care.
Right. Yeah, totally. There were no cell phones. Nobody's tracking us on the GPS. None of that. There was none of that.
No. And so it was easy to fall into situations where we were vulnerable kids who, had all the braggadocio kind of behavior of, but that
whatever
kind
I
of
want.
punk rock, I'll show you.
Yeah.
But we were very damaged and vulnerable.
No dad in the picture, no father, no.
My father was a really kind-hearted person, but he was living on the East Coast. He and my mother didn't get along well, and so any attempts that he made to connect with me and my sister were intercepted. And it's very sad because he died suddenly while I was still a teenager, and I never really had the chance to establish a relationship with him, but everyone who knew him said he was an amazing person. And then I did meet his stepdaughter, and as a grown-up not that long ago, and she was able to share with me that he had always tried to reach out to me and Vicky, that they would often wait for us to show up, and my mother would cancel at the last minute, etc. And so that meant, you never know. I was ready to receive that information, but it broke my heart a bit. You just don't know how long you have with someone. And as an adult, I would have liked to have had the opportunity to get to know him,
That's tough. Do you have children yourself now?
I don't. Yeah.
Okay. Are you married or spouse or partner or anything?
I was married a long time to an amazing man, and he passed away 7 years ago to cancer. It was like really sudden. And then took me a while to get back on my feet after that. And building TRIPP was actually a result of kind of thinking about how do I want to build my life going forward alone.
Wow. Okay. For the listeners, I just want to recap right here. Your sister died, or let's see, did your mom pass first or your sister?
My sister passed first, then my husband, then my mother. Yeah. Yeah. It was almost like I lost everyone who loved me.
Oh my gosh.
All in a very short time period. It was like within a 2 to 3 year timeline.
You said earlier, I'm not really supposed to be here. You really weren't supposed to see me on those YouTube videos. You're right, because based on your childhood and all the things that happened to you, yeah, you were supposed to go the other direction, right?
There's all kinds of reasons why I can stay in bed and pull the covers over my
you could.
No one
No
would
doubt.
think I wasn't entitled to do that.
Right.
However,
Exactly. Yeah.
I will say, Steve, I've met so many people in my journey who have suffered worse, who have not been able to pull out of that. And, I think that now I look at my experience as it gave me a foundation to actually bring to my work a compassionate, center that I'm really motivated by. How do we help people get these tools in the same way that that woman gave me a tool? And at the time, there weren't mobile apps that helped you meditate, right? And they've done a great job in helping, just people think about it more, to take the time to breathe. It's reduced the stigma around taking care of yourself and self-care. And so I really wanted to approach that at a much broader scale, in the sense that how do we advance that in a way that we can use technology and even video game-like environments, which I always found a lot of benefit from playing. It's kind of like when you play a video game, you're in control of your universe. You are oftentimes like personifying a hero, and you're on a mission, and you've got structure, and you're making decisions, and you're in multiplayer games engaging with other people. Sometimes you're building whole worlds.
True. Yeah.
And as a young person who oftentimes felt like the whole world was falling apart around me and I had no agency, playing video games really helped give me that sense. Even if it was the beginning, of the arcades where I was in there flying, a little spaceship between asteroids, right? Like,
I love that. I know that game.
It made me feel a little bit like a badass too, because I was often the only girl in there,
Yeah.
And,
For the listeners who may not know, you had a great career in games, right? Worked for EA Sports and a bunch of others, right? A very successful career so the meditation started at what age? 15?
15, and I really took to it immediately. I was embarrassed about doing it, and it wasn't like I told all my punk rock friends or my skater friends, like, I gotta go meditate, right? But it's something that for me, it inserted that little pause before I reacted or made
that is so great. Can I ask you, what was the trigger for that first visit? Were you forced to go? Did you do something and like the judge was like, you have to go? Okay.
Yeah, they have this thing called a 5150 where you get put on a hold in the hospital because they consider you to be a danger to yourself and potentially even others as a result. And I think they still do that today.
Okay.
But it was I was having an extreme panic attack. And like very extreme, and it was in kind of like a psychotic break, and I ended up in the hospital as a result. And the therapist they assigned me with to work upon release to work with was a woman who I will always be grateful for. She
I was just about to ask
come
you.
back from Nepal. And had learned a Tibetan Buddhist meditation practice, and she had already been doing Vipassana meditation, and this, was a long time ago. And but it changed my life. And she even invited me to a weekend retreat that she and another therapist were doing. And I was very young. I was like maybe 15, 16. when I went to that retreat, and it was a silent retreat at the therapist's house in Los Angeles. And so, you went home at night, but you showed up, it was like all day of meditating. And I just found I found my thing.
How about that? That is so wonderful. Were there any psychedelics or mushrooms or any drugs?
I did back then, but for me, actually my first LSD trip, I was very young. And it was actually an amazing experience. Maybe it made me feel a connection to something bigger.
I've heard that from many people. Yeah.
But what happened was just through some really bad experiences, some that predicated that episode that I had. Whenever I would do any kind of mushroom or peyote experience, those violent episodes came forward in a way that you were really too much for me to handle. And so I think one of the things I would say, psychedelics are a big topic in today's mental health industry. And the data is very strong on the effects of them. And TRIPP is actually well supported by many of the investors who have invested in the psychedelic research and science space. I think it's a very exciting time for the impact that they will have on the mental health industry. But I would say to people, especially those who've gone through life experiences like I have and may have suffered some early trauma, it's important to make sure that you are in a setting that is taking a more therapeutic approach to it, that you have the support that you need, because it will bring forth some things someone like me should never be out in public just on it. It's not that being said, I have had some experiences that were more therapeutic in their approach, and they really helped me a lot of healing.
We've had several people in psychedelics and mushrooms on the podcast, and friends of mine here in Colorado. Of course, it's a big thing in Colorado. And my friend Dale, he's like, listen, he's like, I know you go to the mountains all the time by yourself camping. He's like, I don't recommend you go to the mountains in the dark and do any mushrooms the first time all by yourself.
It's the therapeutic process is very different than that Burning Man. And so I do think that having the support you need through that, it can be very, very healing. But look at some of the research. I encourage anybody to look at what they're doing at Johns Hopkins out of the psychedelic research center there, and also Harvard's Mass General Hospital has some very exciting research, as well as some of the UK universities as well. And I think that you see some of the early impact of ketamine helping suicidal ideation, and being a legal way to treat mental health right now. It's very promising field. I think it should be approached with great care.
Okay. So you're moving through your career, you're doing well, you're getting promotions, you're moving along, you're going to meditation, you're becoming more of a meditation fan. How did you get to the entrepreneurial step, right? When were you like, okay, this is cool, I've had a good career, but now I'm going to start my own thing? How'd that transition happen?
Oh, it was ongoing, in the sense that I found, for whatever reason, once I started working, that I liked work and I had a good work ethic. And I don't know that everyone feels that way. My late husband, Vic, worked in the film industry as a teamster, a transportation coordinator, and he was good at his job. I don't know that he loved it, right? But there was something I found early on when I got together with people and worked on an initiative. There was something about that collective energy and ideation that I found really stimulating, and I was good at it. So in the early days of web development, me and my friends were, we transitioned from doing graphic design to building websites back in the day in the 90s in Hollywood. And we found like very quickly we were making a lot of money. And one of my friends started her own web development shop, and I went to go work for her. My husband, I was married at the time, and he got hepatitis C, and he was in treatment for that condition, and it compromised his ability to work. So I reached out to my friend Karen, who had this web development shop, and I said, I need to come make some money and go to work. And I loved it. I loved working for her. I learned so much. We had some really fun projects working for the film studios. And we worked on the Earthlink start page for Sky Dayton back then. And he was starting a new Los Angeles incubator called E-Companies. And this was before the first .com sort of, wipeout. And we see similarities now in Web3, crypto, but technology always has kind of these new platforms, always have these cycles where there's a lot of hype and then they flame out. But it was an amazing time. And E-Companies ended up buying Karen's company, and we all went to work at this tech incubator. And it was such a great job. I loved it so much because we would analyze startups, and our team would prototype the startup ideas. And then we would evaluate them with the senior leadership team at this incubator on whether they would get funded or not. And I think that really gave me an understanding of startup life, which is
no doubt
90% will fail immediately, right? Like we launched one company that I ran product at called E-Parties. That was when everything was E this and E that. And we were live for less than 60 days and we shut down, and I'm sobbing. And the E-Companies team was like, oh, we got some funding from a phone operator company, and we want to do a mobile game startup. Will you come, work on that? And all of a sudden I learned that entrepreneur kind of vibe is try some things out, and sometimes they don't always work.
That's right. And just keep going. Just get back up.
Kind of like
keep
video
going.
games too, right? Like you die over and over, but every time you die a little bit later, right? And
that's so good.
Learnings, right?
Oh, I love that. Entrepreneurs are a little bit like playing video games. You die over and over. You just keep going. That's so good. I'm going to use that. I'm stealing that. That's a good line.
Well, you also realize too that success and failure are two sides of the same coin, right? And there's a process of trying things out, analyzing, being able to like throw things out, not get too attached to your own awesome ideas, really test and see what's working. One of the things I love to do the most is run multivariate tests or A/B tests. And, because it's so fun to think, well, I think blue buttons are going to work better than orange buttons. And you run the tests, and when you get proven wrong by the data, by the actual like performance of something, it's kind of fun in a way. It's surprising, right? Like you have to be comfortable with failure, and also failure can lead you to something better. I always talk about examples like Botox was originally created to deal with lazy eye, and when they started testing it and they saw the impact on smoothing out the skin, they realized, well, we can make it's a much bigger, wrinkles are a much bigger market than lazy eye. And then there were similar things that happened with testing Viagra, It was originally created for angina, chest pain, and
I
of
think I
course, when
remember
they
that.
tested it, they
Yep.
found something else, right? More profitable.
So that's how the entrepreneurial the entrepreneurial journey and being around it and that's how
it was
all
so much
that's
fun.
yeah.
I worked
Gotcha.
with some great people, and Sky
That's
Dayton
awesome.
started Earthlink, and
That's great.
Mitch Lasky was my boss at a mobile game startup that came out of that incubator. And
Wow.
we worked with some of the early pioneers of digital content on cell phones. And
How about
it
that?
also, the other thing from being an entrepreneur is you would hear like everyone say when we started e-companies, and um, people would say, well, no one's ever going to buy something that they can't hold in their hands. It might work for a book, but no one would ever buy a pair of shoes that way.
I remember.
Yeah.
I remember those conversations.
Yeah. And we heard it with the mobile game company. No one's ever going to want to play a game on their cell phone. All people want to do is talk on their phone. And talking is the last thing we want to do on the phone. I don't even listen to my voicemail. It just seems kind of aggressive that you left me a voicemail instead of sending me a text, right? And and you hear those things over and over. When I was at a company that was one of the largest YouTube gaming networks, like my friends would look at me and go, why would anyone want to watch someone else play a video game? And I would say, well, why do people watch other people play golf?
Yeah. It's the same. It's the same thing. Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, how did TRIPP formalize in your head? How'd you come up with it?
It's a great I look back at it now and I feel like everything in my life prepared to run TRIPP.
Absolutely. Everything you've shared with me, everything I've learned about you so far, it steered you right towards it. Yep.
I had no idea about that. And that's why I think sometimes we think we know what we want to do in life, but you also have to just let yourself get in the currency, of life, the current and the flow of it. And I think of it like currency in that sense, because the value exchange kind of tells you where to look next. If people are throwing money at you to come work at their startup, it's kind of like, oh, I should put that art career on hold a little bit and go show up at that startup. And who knew that would lead me to a great career? Also, just the fact that I was upset with my husband making me go get a real job instead of kind of doing my own thing. And so just showing up and seeing what appears sometimes is a really good strategy when you don't know which way to turn. So with TRIPP, Vic passed away in April of 2015. And so we navigated his illness and death, which was very quick, very well, because of our meditation practice that we had. It was really a foundation for our relationship together as well. He meditated 10 times more than I did.
Really?
He had a nonprofit focused on Tibetan Buddhism, and he went to Tibet several times a year, and sometimes for several months. And so we had a very healthy, autonomous type of relationship where I was focused on working in the video game industry, and he was doing all these philanthropic things, and we were both very happy, and we'd come together. So when he died, the grief really hit me, because it was, people feel grief as the result of a tremendous love, right? It's the loss of a great love. And in many ways, it's kind of the side of that coin, right? Grief is one side of the coin. The other side is love. And so depending on which way the coin toss happens, is what you're sitting with. And I actually felt like a zombie. It was the only time in my life that I really didn't want to go on living, in my adulthood. And I just felt really numb inside. I had to go ask for professional support because I couldn't unstick myself from it.
Okay.
And then through that support, I went to grief recovery, and then I went to a mental health expert who specialized in grief to work with me in more in depth. And we worked through it. And there was like this light bulb went off in my head that I was looking at my life as broken because my heart was broken.
Mm.
And there was this door that opened in my mind where I could see, I was so deeply loved as, by my husband, and I had this amazing life. And this next phase of my life could be even more wonderful because it was built on such an amazing foundation. Look at the life I had built for myself on a foundation of damage and
Right.
loss. So if I could now level up in a way, this next, like, just opening up to the possibility that life could be even more amazing at this stage, and allowed me to start to meditate on what that might look like. What does that mean for me?
Okay.
And I thought, I've been a COO for the last 10 years of my career, helping bring forth other people's ideas, contributing to them. I love that process, as I mentioned, working as a team. But I thought, what's your idea?
Mm.
And I felt like it was time for me to be CEO as well. And I
Okay.
thought, what is your idea, Nanea? And I had made an investment prior to Vic's passing in Oculus, the first really big commercial VR solution out there. HTC and Oculus came out around the same time. And
Okay.
I was really excited about virtual reality. There was something about this idea of overlaying reality on top of the current reality that you're experiencing. And it was just really exciting. And that really stuck with me. And I thought, I want to work in VR. And
Okay.
I want to see if we can combine video game mechanics and mindfulness structures to give people tools to help them change the way they feel. Because some of the early VR experiences were so effective at scaring the pants off of you
Right. Yeah.
that it occurred to me, if you could scare someone, you could also potentially trigger a more positive mindset, right? So I got really excited about that idea.
Mm. Mm.
And it was like, that little crack that said maybe life could be more wonderful going forward just started expanding as I started to think about this idea of using tech for good. And I started doing research, and and I also knew I was at a point in my career where an idea that I had would be supported. And it's not like, people talk about the resistance to women and people of color getting investment. It's not so much, I don't think, look, there are definitely diversity issues, but I think it's based on, a lot of it is based on mitigating risk, in the sense that we're going to fund people we know we've funded before,
Yep.
because
Yep.
it mitigates some of the operational risk, right? And I knew that I was one of those people.
Yeah.
Even though I had lady parts and
Yeah.
and I'm multi-ethnic, like, in spite of all, despite that, I knew that I had enough career track record that I could get an idea, at least get the first check, right?
That's great.
Support it.
Yeah. Good.
And so what I always try to do is encourage entrepreneurs to, if you have that entrepreneurial spirit, is align yourself with teams that are already starting to get on fire, that are going to have a successful outcome. because that is the career strategy that will tee you up so that when you have your own idea, you can walk in and get it funded, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it might be easier if you're a rock star coder out of Stanford or Berkeley, but you know, my path is not that. And I ended up, you know, working on a few hit companies that sequentially set me up to be able to walk in and say, hey, I have this idea for this mindfulness meets video game meets psychedelic meets virtual reality. And, you know, I was able to get the meetings and I was able to get that
Great.
first check.
That's
And so,
great. That's great. Congratulations. How much
thank you.
can you tell us how much you've raised so far? I know it's a private company. I don't know how much you want to
No,
share.
you know, we've announced our funding, so $26 million to
Wow.
date. So
Congratulations.
yes, I'm very,
Wow.
very proud of that. And we are fundraising again, so check back
Great.
in, see how well we do. But it's you know, a
Very good.
lot of people do get knocked out of those first
Oh,
ranks, right?
no doubt about it. Can you do this for us for the listeners? It's TRIPP.com, and that's with
TRIPP. Yep.
yeah, with two P's. Yep. TRIPP.com. Will you give like the 3-minute kind of overview real quick? If you're, you know, for the listeners that may not have looked it up yet during this podcast, just give it to us. TRIPP.com.
Sure. So TRIPP is, you could think of TRIPP as a new way to meditate, where we bring you into these immersive worlds and they're architected to trigger states of awe and wonder first and foremost. And you can do amazing things in VR, like show you your breath coming in and out as stardust.
Wow.
We take that approach rather than, you know, just sticking you on a 360 video beach and telling you to inhale. You can experience that in VR, but it's not differentiated. What TRIPP really does is kind of create that magic, and by giving you experiences you cannot have in this world. And we can make you feel like you're floating up to different dimensions. And we have our core experiences, our focus, calm, and drift. Drift is a sleep preparation tool. You can go in and select what kind of environment you want to be in. We have a catalog of many different worldscapes, we call them. And then you can choose your own topic that you want to be guided through, or mindfulness music. That's my chief security officer in the background. She's 7 pounds and the cutest thing ever. And then also in the TRIPP universe, we have mobile content. You can download our mobile app. They're free. And they have audio and video content that can support you when you're on the go. And then we also have a very thriving community in the metaverse doing 30 to 40 live groups per week that you can join in. There's something really cool about being in a slightly anonymous setting of having an avatar and a username that doesn't identify your real life persona, where you can open up with other people more. And it's actually really cool to meditate in virtual environments together as a community and then have a discussion. So those you can find out on TRIPP.com. We have the schedule. You don't need a headset to jump into them in virtual reality. You can use your browser, but it's much deeper connection if you have an Oculus, a Meta Quest device, or also you can connect with TRIPP. Our single user experiences on PlayStation VR as well.
Do I need to purchase the device separately, or can
Yeah, and VR, the Meta Quest is a great device. You can do all kinds of new ways to approach your fitness and workout. I like to box in VR. I box and then I meditate. It's and you're you know, it's a really good workout. There are all kinds of other experiences you can join into socially.
I've never used one, so I'll ask a couple of ignorant questions.
Sure.
You get the device, and then I guess it connects to the internet, and then it downloads, or it connects to your account on TRIPP, and then TRIPP feeds it with the information that it needs. Is that how it works?
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. And this is the Meta Quest Pro device. It fits very comfortably on the head. And, and it all of the computing is in the device itself. On the PlayStation VR device, and they have a new one shipping right now. I've got mine. I just got the notice mine's on the way. That connects to the PlayStation 5 console.
Interesting.
And then HTC, they have a very lightweight headset called the Flow. And I just lent mine to someone. It's a great device. It looks more like ski goggles. We're available on that. But they have a new one coming out called the XR Elite. That's an amazing device as well. Very lightweight, a lot smaller.
Does it attach to your ears too for sound?
Yep. Yeah. Well, there's the sound comes through the band here, and it's surprisingly good. But because TRIPP has sound frequencies in the experiences, binaural audio and isochronic tones that are supposed to kind of elicit different responses in the person, it's better with headphones. So I always add my Apple Air Max headphones.
I see. And real quick, I apologize for the listeners if we're getting a little bit of delay here on our video, but let me ask you this. Is it a monthly, like I just pay a certain amount a month, and then TRIPP continues to roll out new stuff, like now today we can go to Mars, or I don't know, whatever. I mean,
that's right. Those are all great questions. So we have a catalog of several I think we're at like over 50 experiences. We have many, we have over 100 different types of meditations that you can jump into. We add new stuff every week.
You add new stuff every week.
A monthly and annual subscription. We do have a lifetime option as well. But that allows us to continue to thrive as a business, and our users are also helping us evolve the platform and the technology over time by being subscribers. When we expand our mobile experience, we will we have some really cool features in store for expanding our mobile experience as well. So we don't need that. So.
I know we're out of time. I've already kept you over on time, but I got two more quick questions.
Sure.
I can keep you for another hour, but if I can hit you with two really quick. First is, are you still a gamer? Do you still?
I wish I played games as much. I am playing Sky on my mobile phone. I love that game. It's built by Genova Chen, he's one of my favorite game designers. He has a company called That Game Company. So I have been playing Sky. And sometimes I fire up my PS5. I was actually playing another one of Genova's games called Journey. I'm watching The Last of Us, which is one of my favorite video games. It's from Naughty Dog. And now they have a TV series on it. So it's really fun to see the live action of a game franchise that I love. I just don't have the time to play like
I hear you.
do. So when I do play, I have the walkthroughs like an old person on my iPad next to me, with kids telling me how to get through certain parts of the game, because sometimes I just don't have the time to figure it out.
Then last question here. Will we get to the Star Trek holodeck hologram? Remember what was it called? Remember on Star Trek where they would go into the room and it was like it was kind of like the VR, right? Where they would go to like a magical place, and they called it the holodeck or something, didn't they? I was trying to. Will we get there? Will it be like that eventually, or no?
Yeah, I have a very optimistic vision of the future. I think so. When we started working on that mobile game company, I had a Nokia flip phone. I also had a Motorola Razr right after that. I had an MP3 player, a Texas Instruments calculator, a Canon camera. I had a Palm Pilot with this expandable keyboard. Oh, and I had a Game Boy. I had a Nintendo Game Boy, right? And I would carry all these gadgets around. They have all come together into something I call my phone now. And I believe there's a day where we will have something we call our glasses that are very lightweight, that can overlay data and experience on top of the reality we're physically in, but also allow us to go into full immersion as needed. And TRIPP's goal will be to be the wellness tool of choice for that transition from phone to glasses. And I do believe in that as a future. I think there are some concerns that we need to be thoughtful of how we make that transition in the way we incorporate advertising and data collection around privacy, with outward facing cameras and the ability to detect different states of a user and even physical health. So data privacy is going to be a much bigger concern when we have computers strapped to our heads. Right now, we're walking around with computers in our hand all day long, right? Changing even the way we think, the way our brain retains information. It's going to get even more accelerated when we're closer to, our eyes and how we see the world. So I do think that leaders like myself and others need to come together and talk through some of these ethical concerns as an industry and be thoughtful and mindful about it. And even with all of that, some of us are going to make mistakes. We need to be able to use those learnings, just like playing the video game. You die over and over again. We have to have the healthy ability to communicate and share learnings, because it is going to be a period of innovation that is going to be far greater than what we've seen in mobile. And think about mobile. When we first started shipping mobile games, and people were telling us no one will ever want to play a game on their cell phone, no one at that time saw the concept of an influencer economy, a gig economy where you could just hop in to your car and start earning money driving other people around. Like the innovation that computing being mobile facilitated, computing turning to being spatial. So you think of spatial computing, that is the transition that we're on. And so, yes, the genie's out of the bag and it will happen. And I actually think it's going to happen more quickly, Steve, than people are aware of.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. The last thing I'll say on that is I told my team this morning, I said, look, if you have not played around with Chat GPT yet and got on there, and I said, I'm just telling you right now, and I said almost exactly what you said. I said, at this point now, it's going to move at light speed. The technology is going to move at light speed.
Yeah. So, now we have used those tools already in our company. And the AI art generation. We have our data scientists. Maybe this is encouraging to the listeners. I've actually seen it increase our creativity as it does not replace the team. And since using these tools, we've hired a couple of more artists as opposed to eliminate artists. So I feel like in the same way that transportation evolving from horse and buggy kind of facilitated things like refrigeration, and food distribution. I think there's the potential for it to enhance our creativity and our work life in ways that we're not thinking of, you know?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. What I hear you saying is, hey, it's wise to support and stay positive about what technology can do for us. Don't run from it. Don't hide from it. Don't fight it, because it ain't going anywhere. So you might as well just.
And we've seen so many examples of these transitions in
Yes.
transportation. We've seen
Yes.
it in the advertising industry where it got more automated. But what it did was it democratized the ability for people to start new businesses. In
That's
the
right.
old days, no one could afford to get an ad out in front of people beyond the classified section of the newspaper. And now any small business can go on
That's right.
Google or Facebook and target an audience specifically to what they're able to support. And so I think we'll see variations of this in ways, but again, it's really important for people in general to get their minds right
Yes.
so that they don't drop into these fear spirals.
Agreed.
Be very damaging, because there are definitely ethical concerns all around us. We saw the way that even just the mobile feeds can influence even elections, etc. Right? And the public mindset in general, and how, you know, it can create trust or a lack of trust.
That's right.
And so it's important that we all work on our inner selves in ways that will allow us to be thoughtful and aware of how we're being manipulated, the decisions that we're making that might need more thinking or more consulting support. And so there's benefits all around to getting our minds right. And, you know, and that really was what excited me about TRIPP. And, you know, I'll just end with this. You know, it came from this idea of how do I build my life going forward alone? And it gave me, I believe, my life's work, you know, to emerge from loss and what was, you know, at that time I perceived to be this terrible life experience. And so, but just continuing to show up and learning how to ask for help and creating that contemplative space, it really did turn into something wonderful. It's not easy, but it's something that I feel like at the end of my journey, I'll go, oh, I did that, right?
I love
And
it.
so I think
Love it.
there's so many opportunities for each person to find out what's their version of that. Not all of us need to be entrepreneurs. It takes a special type of crazy. But just even taking the time to ask ourselves, what do I really want from myself and my life going forward today from this moment? It's something we just need to create the space for. I think you'll be amazed at the answers that arise from that if you can just stop and take that little pause to ask yourself that question, true to your heart. Anyway, thanks for letting me share that.
Nanea Reeves, TRIPP.com. Thank you very much, Nanea, for sharing your story. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, thank you so much.